This happened last summer. I'm a wildlife photographer and I love remote places. The San Rafael Swell caught my attention with its rugged beauty. I thought it would be perfect for capturing stunning photos. I had been there before, but never stayed long. I still can't shake off what happened. I set up my tent on the first night. It was quiet, just me and the canyon. I felt a bit isolated, but I figured that was normal. It was peaceful until midnight. I heard something. It started as a low growl. My mind raced. I thought maybe it was just my imagination or the wind. The next morning, sunlight broke over the cliffs. It looked beautiful, but my stomach twisted as I stepped outside. I found something odd by my tent. There were small bones and fur arranged in a circle. My mind went wild, wondering what could have done that. I didn't want to think too much about it. I figured maybe wild animals had been scavenging. I tried to push away my unease as I hiked deeper into the swell. I spotted shadows darting between the rocks. When I turned to look, nothing was there. My heart raced each time. I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. By the second night, I was back at my campsite. I tried to focus on my photography, but then the sounds returned. They were louder this time. Growls mixed with cries. Each noise echoed off the canyon walls, making my skin crawl. I thought maybe it was a pack of coyotes, so I tried to shake off my fear. But when I looked over at the circle of bones again, I saw fresh blood on a rock nearby. Panic gripped me. I remembered hearing locals say wildlife control refused to enter after strange events. I thought maybe they were just stories to scare off tourists. But now, late that night, I was finally about to fall asleep when I noticed a figure. It was standing at the edge of the woods. I felt cold chills run down my spine. I wanted to call out, but no words came out. When I bolted upright and looked back, the figure was gone. I didn't know what to think. My mind raced with confusion. Was I imagining things, or was something out there with me? Sleep wouldn't come easy. I heard more strange noises that night. They were closer and more intense, as if something was stalking me. By the next morning, I packed my belongings in a panic. I hiked back to my car, heart pounding. I couldn't shake that feeling of being watched. Wildlife control won't step inside this place again. And now, I understand why. I'm back home now, but I can't forget that summer. I should have listened to the warnings, the whispers of danger echoing off those canyon walls. I wonder if I'll ever find the courage to return. Sometimes I hear the growls in my dreams. I thought I was safe back home, but my dreams betrayed me. Every night I could hear the growls and cries from the canyon. The sounds were so vivid, as if they were right outside my window. I would wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing, convinced that something was still out there. Weeks passed, but the memories lingered. I tried to distract myself, diving into work. I focused on photos from other landscapes, but the San Rafael Swell haunted me. Each picture I took of another location only made me miss the rugged beauty that had once thrilled me. One afternoon, I decided to visit a local coffee shop. As I sipped my brew, I overheard a couple talking about the swell. My ears perked up. They spoke of a recent incident, something sinister happening in the area. I leaned in closer, straining to hear every word. People started disappearing, one of them said. Hikers, campers, they just vanish. Some think it's a curse or something. My heart sank. I hadn't wanted to believe the local stories, but this was different. I felt a pull to go back. I needed answers. The feeling was unbearable, like a magnet drawing me back toward the very place that terrified me. I left the coffee shop in a daze, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe others had seen what I had seen. Maybe I wasn't alone in my fear. That night I pored over maps and articles online. I found posts from other hikers who had encountered strange things too. I noted the locations they mentioned, marking them on my map. It felt reckless, but I had to know. I needed to capture my own evidence. The following week I packed my gear and made the drive to the swell. It felt different this time. The air was heavy with unease. Dark clouds loomed overhead as I set up my tent, and I almost turned around. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I was determined to find out the truth. As night approached, the landscape transformed. Shadows danced under the pale moonlight as I sat by my campfire, camera ready. I listened carefully, heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to believe it was just the wind, but deep down, I felt the weight of something watching me. Then a sound caught my attention. A low growl echoed through the trees. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed my flashlight, scanning the darkness. That same dread returned, clinging to me like a second skin. Something was out there. Suddenly, a branch snapped behind me and I spun around. My breath quickened as I saw movement at the edge of the campsite. An outline shifted, just beyond the firelight. Then everything went silent. I could hardly breathe. And just like that, the fear I'd tried to suppress came rushing back, drowning me in panic. That's when something stepped into the light. I froze, my heart pounding. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Fear consumed me as I prepared to run, but I needed to know what was lurking in the shadows. The creature emerged slowly, its form both elegant and terrifying. With a towering frame cloaked in dark fur and piercing eyes that seemed to glow, it stood transfixed by the flickering firelight. I felt paralyzed, unable to look away. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but a part of me was rooted in place, begging for some understanding. Then without a word or sound, it shifted, moving just beyond the reach of the flames. I tightened my grip on the flashlight, flicking it toward the entity. The beam caught its face, and I recoiled. Its features were otherworldly, long, elongated limbs, a snout that jaggedly contrasted with its almost human eyes. I had seen enough horror films to know what came next, but this wasn't a movie. This was real, and I was living it. A chilling howl erupted from the creature, reverberating through the trees. The sound echoed off the canyon walls like a warning. I steadied my breath, trying to control my racing thoughts. This was what I had come for, to uncover the truth that had haunted my dreams. But was I ready for it? Suddenly, a rustling noise shattered the quiet. I turned instinctively toward the sound, losing sight of the creature for just a moment. My heart raced, pumping adrenaline through my veins. I swung the flashlight back, but it was gone. A pang of despair shot through me. This couldn't be happening. Had I really seen it, or was it just my overactive imagination? Just as panic began to sink its teeth into me, the growl returned. It reverberated from deeper in the woods, this time accompanied by a dissonant chorus of rustling leaves and snapping twigs. I wasn't alone in my fears. Something was watching from the shadows, perhaps more than one of them. I took a faltering step back, reminding myself of the gear I had stashed in my tent. I could arm myself with my camera, maybe even capture something to show others. They had to believe me. But what if I didn't make it back? What if I was destined to become just another line in the rumors of missing hikers? With every ounce of courage, I turned to face the dark expanse of the trees. The growl deepened, and an electric tension filled the air. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my curiosity overpowered my fear. I took a step forward, drawn in like a moth to a flame. That's when something moved in my peripheral vision. I swiveled quickly, but this time I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Out of the shadows came another creature, just as formidable as the first. My breath caught in my throat. I was surrounded. A terrible realization dropped into my stomach. This wasn't just a lone beast haunting my dreams. There was a pack, and now they knew I was here. My gut twisted with the knowledge that I was not just facing one creature, but two, and possibly more lurking in the shadows. The second creature mirrored the first, its fur dark as the night sky, its eyes glowing with an unsettling hunger. They seemed to communicate silently, their forms shifting slightly as if deciding my fate. Instinct kicked in, and I took a shaky step back, my flashlight beam trembling over the bramble and rocks. Somehow my camera felt like a useless weight in my hand. I was an intruder in their realm, trapped among their territory. The growling intensified, a rumbling concert of menace that sent chills down my spine. In that moment, I remembered the survival guide I had leafed through in a frantic panic before this trip. It mentioned that in animal encounters, fear could be as powerful as a weapon. I forced myself to breathe deeply. I had to show them I wasn't a threat. I raised my flashlight higher, intending to illuminate my surroundings, hoping that seeing my fear would dilute it. Just stay back, I managed to croak out, my voice barely above a whisper. The words hung in the air, heavy and frail. The creatures tilted their heads, studying me. The first one took a step forward, muscle rippling beneath the shadowy fur. My heart pounded. This was no simple wild animal. It radiated intelligence, a primal awareness of my every move. I could feel their breath against the night air, hot and heavy. And then I noticed something that sent a jolt of confusion through me. Around their necks, a strange collar glimmered in the moonlight. I squinted, trying to discern the features in the dark. They looked like tracking devices, and for a moment, I wondered if they were more than just predators in the woods. Before I could make sense of it, the howl returned, louder and more visceral than before, shaking the very ground beneath me. The creatures turned, ears perked up, and darted further back into the darkness. I held my breath, wondering if I should chase after them. But before I could decide, a third creature emerged, a slightly smaller figure equally intimidating. It stood there pawing the ground, marked by the same unsettling glow of its eyes. My instincts screamed once more. This was not the moment for curiosity. I turned to sprint back to my tent, but the weight of their gaze bore down on me, paralyzing my legs. Then, just as I prepared to flee, a sudden crack echoed behind me. I whipped around, the flashlight beam skimming the trees. My blood ran cold as a figure slipped through the branches. Someone was out there, in the shadows. I had thought I was alone in this wilderness, but now it seemed the forest was alive with more than just creatures. The third beast growled, and the sounds of snapping branches grew louder as more creatures joined the cacophony. Panic boiled in my chest as I realized my only sanctuary was no longer safe. Someone or something was watching me. The forest was closing in. I turned swiftly, preparing to run, but that's when I spotted it. A glimpse of movement caught my eye. A flash of silver in the underbrush, a glimmer of a metallic object. Was it another collar, or something else entirely? I had to know, but fear urged me to flee. I stood frozen, trapped between the creatures and the unknown ahead. What would come next? My heart raced as I took in the situation. The creatures remained still, watching me with hungry eyes while the shadows deepened, hinting at the presence of something or someone behind me. I felt a cold trickle of sweat running down my spine. I had to make a decision. The metallic glimmer in the brush beckoned me closer. What if it was some kind of tool, something that could help me? But as I glanced back at the beasts, their postures shifted, low and tense, ready to spring. I took a breath, realizing that the shimmering object might be a risk I couldn't afford. But my curiosity gnawed at me. I need to know, I muttered under my breath, both to reassure myself and to mask the fear that threatened to overwhelm me. Just as I gathered my resolve and started to edge toward the underbrush, another howl erupted, piercing the night. It was closer this time, a haunting sound that rattled my bones. Instincts kicked in again. I had to act. I turned abruptly back toward the tent, the safest refuge I could think of. The creatures seemed to growl in unison. I could almost hear their silent communication. They didn't want me to leave, but I was out of time. They were not just hunting for food, they were hunting me. As I darted into the trees, I felt the cool rush of the night air surround me. Every snap of a twig echoed like a gunshot, and the acrid smell of damp earth filled my nostrils. I cut through the foliage, but just as I thought I was gaining distance, I stumbled. My foot caught on a twisted root, sending me crashing into the ground. The flashlight clattered away from me, leaving me momentarily in darkness. Panic surged as I scrambled to regain my feet. The creatures had drawn closer, and the rustling in the underbrush was relentless. With a burst of adrenaline, I lunged forward to retrieve my flashlight, praying that it hadn't gone too far. When I found it, the beam flickered to life and illuminated a path ahead. But just a few yards away, I caught something in the light. The silver object I had nearly ignored was now close enough to examine. It gleamed with a strange, inviting quality. Without thinking, I reached for it, pulling it from the ground. What I held shocked me. It was a small metallic collar, but this one was different. Red wires snaked out, pulsating with a soft light, as if it lived and breathed. What had I stumbled upon? Before I could process what this meant, I felt a presence behind me. The growl pierced the night, low and threatening. It was one of the creatures, standing tall, its eyes fixed on the collar in my hand. I suddenly realized that whatever this item was, it held more meaning than I could fathom, and perhaps it was tied to the creatures themselves. Fear locked my throat as the creature took a step forward, and I could only imagine the choices in front of me. Was this the answer I sought, or simply an unavoidable trap? The forest whispered its secrets, and I was caught in the chaos, trapped between answers and despair. I had to act, and I had to act fast. As I took a step back, the sound of rustling leaves grew deafening, and my heart was screaming. I wasn't as alone as I thought. As the creature moved closer, I could barely breathe. The collar pulsed in my hand, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. I didn't know if it was a weapon or a distraction, but I felt an instinct to protect it. I held the collar up, trying to signal that I meant no harm. The creature's eyes narrowed, suspicious and wary. Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded from behind me. I spun around, the flashlight beam slicing through the dark. My heart thudded as I realized it wasn't just the creature stalking me. Something else lurked nearby. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. My instincts screamed for me to get out of there. The creature shifted, its focus divided between me and an unseen presence. I took a chance, darting to the side, pushing through the thick underbrush. My foot slipped, and I veered into a thicket of jagged branches. The pain of a sharp, needle-like twig jabbed into my hand, but I barely registered it. I could hear the creature thrashing behind me, but its attention was now caught by whatever had broken the silence. It let out a roar, deep and echoing, that seemed to shake the trees around me. I stumbled forward, feeling like I was part of some twisted chase game. Just as I thought I could lose my pursuer, I collided with something solid. Another creature. It was larger than the first, its eyes reflecting the light like glinting marbles. I barely could process that I had stepped into its territory when it lunged. My instincts kicked in, and I threw the collar blindly between us. The collar landed with a soft thud, and the second creature paused. The first, still growling, hesitated too. It may have recognized the metallic object. I held my breath, hoping for some miracle, for the collar to matter, for it to mean something to them. The forest went quiet then, almost as if everyone was holding their breath. Both creatures stood still, staring at the collar. I dared not move, afraid to break the spell. But then I noticed something vital. The collar was connecting the two creatures, almost like they were sensing something from it. The air felt thick with tension. More sounds crept into my awareness. Heavy footsteps, breaking branches. Something was approaching from the opposite direction, and it was not me or the creatures. The two beasts jerked their heads in unison, redirecting their attention. The growl turned to a snarl as they backed away slowly from me, still focused on what was coming. "What now?" I whispered, panic creeping into my voice. My heart raced once more, considering if I might be able to escape while they were distracted. But as I looked back, it was too late. A large figure stepped into the clearing, cloaked in shadows. I could hardly make out the shape, but I caught the glint of something sharp in its hand. I backed up, clutching the flashlight as if it could make a difference. My pulse thundered in my ears. This was no longer just about the creatures. There was something else in the darkness. Another threat. There was nowhere to run. And I was trapped. I stood frozen, the flashlight's beam darting between the two creatures and the figure emerging from the tree line. The air felt electric, charged with dread and uncertainty. The creatures were no longer my main concern. This new presence could be more dangerous. "Step back," the figure growled, the voice low and gravelly. I couldn't see their face clearly, but the outline of a blade glimmered in the light. I instinctively tightened my grip on the flashlight, but my mind raced. Getting into a fight wasn't an option. Running was all that was left. Before I could decide on my next move, the larger creature snarled, turning to face this new threat. Its claws raked the ground, and I could see muscles tensing, ready to pounce. The smaller creature mimicked the action, as if prepared to defend its territory. "Wait!" I shouted, desperate. "I didn't mean any harm, Shut up!" the figure hissed, shifting the blade with a menacing flick. "You don't know what you're dealing with." I swallowed hard. The sharpness in their tone echoed with a warning. There was history here, a story I wasn't part of but felt the weight of. My voice caught in my throat when I realized they were looking at me, not the creatures. "I just found this collar," I started, but the figure cut me short. "That collar shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." Their gaze flicked to the creatures, and I noticed a hint of fear in their posture. "They'll just turn on you." The tension hung heavy in the air. I could feel the collar still pulsating in my hand, now a source of impending conflict. The creatures were moving, inching closer to the figure, their eyes locked onto the blade. The scenario blurred in a mix of instinctual fear and a growing curiosity about the collar. As if sensing the change, the larger creature lunged. The figure reacted quickly, brandishing the blade, and my heart raced at the thought of violence erupting right in front of me. The smaller creature followed suit, its growl reverberating through the underbrush. A moment later, the forest erupted into chaos. In an unexpected twist, the collar emitted a vibrant glow. It captured the creature's attention, the new light breaking their focus on the figure. I couldn't believe it. All three animals drew back, eerie stillness in their eyes as they stared at the collar. "What's happening?" I whispered more to myself than to anyone else. Suddenly, the larger creature took a hesitant step forward, drawn by the collar's glow. It reached a clawed paw out, and for a heartbeat, I saw a spark of recognition in its eyes. The figure cursed under their breath and took a step away, eyes wide with disbelief. "You need to get out of here," they warned urgently, glancing back at the beasts. "Before you unleash something you can't control." A rumble echoed deep within the dark woods, as though the earth itself trembled at the unfolding spectacle. The bond between the collar and the creatures was forming. I felt it, a pull toward both danger and something else, something primal. Then everything shifted. The creatures, caught between curiosity and aggression, began to circle me. The figure's knife flashed once more. My next choices were narrow and treacherous. I had to act fast. That's when I noticed the shadow moving behind the figure, darting away from the commotion. Someone else was in the woods, and they were watching. I felt the hairs at the back of my neck prickling. The shadow I'd seen slithered deeper into the underbrush, barely a blur, but it set off alarms in my head. Who was that? And more importantly, what did they want? The larger creature took another cautious step forward, its eyes still locked on the collar. The smaller one followed suit but looked uncertain, unsure whether to attack or retreat. I was trapped, surrounded by beasts who were caught between their instincts and this strange glowing object in my hand. "Get rid of it," the figure barked, their voice urgent. "Now!" I hesitated, gripping the collar tighter as dread poured down my spine. What was so dangerous about it? I didn't want to hurt the creatures, but I feared that if I dropped it, I might lose control of the situation. "Listen," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice calm. "What is this collar? Why do you want me to get rid of it?" The figure glanced at the creatures, then back to me, weighing their words carefully. "That collar is like a beacon. It draws them in, and it might make them more aggressive. You need to throw it far away." Another growl broke out, and the creatures lunged again, but the light from the collar seemed to hold them back as if it confused them. I could see their muscles twitch, but they were torn between curiosity and fear of the light. Before I could react, the shadow in the trees darted again. This time it flared brightly in the flashlight's beam. Just a flash of something sleek and dark, human or animal. I couldn't tell. I shot a glance toward the figure, whose eyes widened in astonishment. They seemed to recognize the movement but didn't share what was happening. Then chaos erupted. The larger creature surged forward, claws outstretched, and I instinctively raised the collar, pointing it at them like a weapon. "Stay back!" The figure yelled, "Throw it!" But the sound barely registered over the growls and snarls. I could see the shadow moving again. It was circling around us, a predator lurking in the darkness. Instinct kicked in. I took a step back, raised my arm, and hurled the collar as hard as I could into the underbrush, fingers still twitching from the energy it contained. The moment it hit the ground, a flash of light exploded outward, swallowing the creatures in its glow. They stumbled, stepping backward as if the light burned them. "Go!" the figure shouted, shifting their stance with the blade raised, ready for the worst. But before we could move, that shadow sprang out, a dark figure, a person unkempt and wild, with eyes reflecting the forest light, emerged from the trees. "Stop!" they shouted, their voice cutting through our fear. "Don't you see? You're making it worse." And at that moment I realized that danger didn't just surround us, it was closing in from every side. I stared at the wild figure, my heart racing. The creatures, still growling, caught in the grip of confusion, seemed as startled by the newcomer as I was. Who was this person? And what did they know about the collar? "Listen to me," they shouted, stepping closer. "You have to—" The larger creature resumed its advance. The tension in the air felt electric. I could sense the struggle within the animals, caught between two forces, the fear of the collar's light and the primal drive to attack. "Get back," the figure warned, but it was too late. The creature lunged, swiping a clawed paw through the air. In that instant, the wild person swept in front of me, raising their own arm, an odd symbol marked on their forearm catching the light. To my surprise, the creature halted, its nostrils flaring as it analyzed this new threat. I felt like time stood still. This moment was pivotal, a crossroads between flight and fight. "Please, we can't let them see that collar again. You need to follow me." The wild person's voice broke through my fear, urgency rippling through their words. "Why?" I demanded. "What's so special about it?" Before they could answer, the smaller creature darted around, flanking us. I flinched, anticipating another attack, but instead, it stopped, its ears twitching, confused. The wild figure took a breath, their eyes glowing with some determination I couldn't understand. Because it doesn't just signal them, it makes them reckless. We need to move. Now, I risked a glance at the figure. They were more than just a bystander. They seemed to understand the situation better than I did. I stepped forward, taking a chance. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. "Somewhere safe. Follow me, but not too close." They took a step back, scanning the underbrush while I shifted my weight, considering my options. The creatures circled slowly, unsure, as if they were sensing our vulnerability. The shadow of the trees loomed larger, pressing down on us as a chilling breeze rustled through the leaves. "Come on." The wild person started to withdraw, moving deeper into the forest. Urgency matching my own rising fear. I could see the larger creature twitching, its muscles ready to pounce. I turned to face the creatures again, unsure what to do. "What if they follow us?" "They will if they sense your fear." The figure was right. I had to calm myself down. I took a deep breath and forced my legs to follow the wild person's lead. As we moved, I glanced back over my shoulder. The creatures hesitated. It felt like they were weighing their choices on some unseen scale. Then they surged forward, following us. Panic raced through me. "They're coming." But the wild person didn't flinch. "Keep running." The forest blurred around us as we dashed through the underbrush, branches snapping and thorns tugging at my clothes. I heard the growls behind me, a constant threat, drumming a beat of urgency in my chest. And then it happened. I stumbled through a clearing and saw something glimmering in the shadows, a metallic object, caught by the moonlight. Who knows what it was? But in the flurry of leaves and the rush of adrenaline, I was almost too late to stop. That's when I saw it. The collar had landed at my feet, but it was no longer alone. It lay there, pulsating beside another object, a crumpled backpack half buried in the dirt, adorned with worn patches and frayed straps. My heart raced. It was unmistakably human. I reached down and instinctively grabbed the collar, but the moment I touched it, the air shifted. Tendrils of energy rippled through me, yanking my attention back to the creatures, who had paused just a few feet away. The wild figure caught my eye from the edge of the clearing. "We can't stop. Just keep moving." I stumbled, torn between the call of a potential answer and the gut-wrenching instinct to flee. The primal growls from the larger creature echoed louder now, a menacing declaration that this ethereal dance was nearing its climax. Suddenly, a wild yell burst from beyond the tree line. "Get away from them!" A second person burst into the clearing, shouting at the figures in the shadows. They rushed toward us, eyes wide with fear, but my pulse quickened with a mixture of horror and confusion. Were we going to be rescued, or were we stepping deeper into the chaos? The wild person beside me didn't hesitate. "Follow me into the woods!" They took off again, and the urgency snapped me back into action. I glanced at the two figures, two people who might have answers, and then back to the creatures who were restless, howling, trapped between curiosity and protectiveness. I kicked the collar away from me, determined to keep danger at bay, and darted after the wild figure. We plunged deeper into the woods, the undergrowth tightening around us as the echoes of snarls danced behind. I stole one last glance back. The larger creature had turned its attention to the newcomers. Instinctively, it seemed to sense the energy of the bright collar now absent from my grasp, and instead focused its intelligence on the figures approaching. The moment frozen in time when primal instincts collided with our chaotic dance felt like a message whispered through darkened branches. Then an explosion of noise erupted behind me, a symphony of shouts, growls, and the heavy sound of paws crushing leaves. In the heart of my panic, I turned and sprinted after the wild figure, who knew these woods better than I did, who still clung to untold secrets. I pushed my legs faster, desperate to escape the collapsing world behind me. But I knew that this wasn't just about me anymore. Whatever had happened with the creatures and whoever those figures were, was tangled up in something bigger, a truth that rattled in the roots of the canyon. I could feel it in the air, that lingering energy pulsing like a warning. After what felt like hours of racing through the dark, the wild figure abruptly halted at the base of an ancient oak. Its gnarled branches seemed to embrace us, providing a sanctuary within the chaos. They leaned against the trunk, breathless. "They won't follow us here. At least not just yet." I could hardly catch my breath, still reeling from everything happening, glancing over at the figure, a reality that felt both familiar and foreign. What were these people? Were they part of this world that I had stumbled into? "Who are you?" I managed to ask between gasps, my heart in turmoil. But instead of answering, they closed their eyes, as if reaching out to something unseen, their chest rising and falling in a rhythmic pattern, calming the chaos within. "Listen, those creatures are connected to the land, tied to forces you'd never understand. The collar you found isn't just theirs. It's an anchor, a conduit. With it you could either unleash a curse or protect us." Confusion bubbled within me, and yet there was an inherent truth in their voice. But what do they want? They opened their eyes, piercing and fierce. Survival. They see the danger the same way we do. You have to understand. That light, it doesn't just draw them, it also reveals their essence. A howl pierced through the woods, faint but powerful. I stiffened, adrenaline surging. "We can't stay here," they nodded. "We can find another way, somewhere safe. But you'll have to trust me. You are a part of this now." And with that, they stepped forward into the dark thicket, beckoning me to follow. I hesitated, my mind racing with questions. Why was I caught up in all of this? The echoes of the growls, the chaos surrounding me, and unanswered questions pressed against me. I could feel the lingering presence of the creatures, and the uncertainty of everything left me more unsettled rather than reassured. But despite everything, part of me believed there was something there waiting for me. A truth, a confrontation, or even an understanding. I took a deep breath and followed the wild figure deeper into the woods, stepping into an uncertain future that mirrored the shadows of last summer's nightmares, and yet hung with a glimmer of unexplored possibilities. As we vanished into the underbrush, the haunting growls faded ever so slightly, but shifted back into whispers, reminding me that the wilderness held its secrets tight, even now, in the darkest depths of the San Rafael Swell. And though I had escaped for now, questions lingered like shadows, unsolved mysteries echoing in the canyon, intertwined with the lines of fate. I couldn't shake the feeling that piece of information was just the tip of something deeper and darker. My journey was far from over.